Number 1.
Brianna Vibert has always had a big heart for family. She had a big heart for the many people in her life who raised her, as well as for her own children who were her whole world. When Brianna was first adopted into a family in the Binghamton, New York area at the age of 3, she had already been through what her family calls a traumatic childhood. After several years with one family, she was later placed with another family, and it was Bobby Joe Stone who legally adopted her, and they settled in Birch Run, Michigan. By the time she was 24 years old, Brianna had been through a lot in life, but those who knew her best knew her as strong, and she always had the love and support of family around her. Recently divorced from the father of her children, she stayed in the Michigan area and worked hard to get to provide a good life for her 4 children, 3 sons and 1 daughter. So when the young mother vanished in the early morning hours of July 15, 2017, her family knew something was wrong. She would never just leave, Bobby Joe told us. I know for a fact if she was alive she would be in contact with someone. According to an investigation by the Flint Township Police Department, Brianna was spotted at 2 gas stations in Flint just hours before she disappeared. On the night of July 14, Brianna left her house following an argument with her boyfriend. The boyfriend later told police that the argument had stemmed from Brianna being denied a visit from the children, who were with their father, because her home lacked water due to a broken well. Lisa Morley Hulse, the woman Brianna lived with from the age of 3 to 16, remained in her life throughout the years. Still in the Binghamton area, she told us that she had spoken to Brianna on the phone prior to the argument and said everything seemed normal at the time. They talked about Brianna's upcoming trip to New York to surprise her sister at her baby's gender reveal party. She was just really happy and excited to come visit us, Lisa said. And we couldn't wait to see her. But we never did. And that's the last time I talked to her. After Brianna left her house that evening, she went to the Marathon gas station on Miller Road in Flint, a place she often went to charge her phone or use the bathroom. At 1 a.m., Brianna was spotted on the gas station's security video getting into a red Pontiac Aztek driven by an unidentified man, Lieutenant Brad Wangler with the Flint Township Police Department told us. He said that man has cooperated with the investigation, but has not been publicly named. The investigation revealed that Brianna asked the man for a ride to a restaurant and that they also stopped by a local adult entertainment club where she had previously worked. Employees at the club told police she left with the same man who had given her a ride there in the red Aztek. Nearly 2 hours later, Brianna is spotted one last time at another gas station in Flint. Lieutenant Wangler told us that security video shows she was at the mobile gas station on South Saginaw Street around 2:45 a.m. Brianna appears to be panicked as she stumbles, holding onto shelves to keep upright, her right arm bleeding. She was last seen in the parking lot of the gas station. Days later, police found her bag in a ditch near her home and located her cell phone in the red Aztek once they determined its owner, according to Lieutenant Wangler. Multiple searches were conducted in the area, but she hasn't been seen or heard from since that night. In February of 2021, police were alerted by the Putnam County Sheriff's Office of a possible sighting of Brianna in New York, but the tip was determined to not be credible. Lieutenant Wangler told us that neither the boyfriend nor the man in the red Aztek have been named suspects in Brianna's case, but investigators aren't ruling anyone out at this time. This is still a missing persons case, he said. We need to find Brianna first. Lieutenant Wangler added that the lead detective on the case, Det. Lacey Lopez, is doing everything she can to locate Brianna and find answers for the family. They are re-interviewing people and following every tip that comes their way. Leads have started to dwindle, but we haven't given up, he said. You have to hope that time is on your side And soon enough someone will come forward with the missing piece that will lead to finding Brianna. Lisa told us she can still hear her laugh and her voice when Brianna would call and ask for advice. She was so funny, just the way she'd tell a story about her day, Lisa said. And then she would ask for my advice, my opinion, and we'd work through stuff. The two families who raised Brianna haven't always seen eye to eye, but Lisa tells us their goal is the same: to find Brianna. The greatest thing about Brianna was her love of family, Lisa said. And she has a lot of family to love. And who loves her back. Brianna's 4 children are older now and still, from time to time, ask about their mother. The 3 boys live in Michigan with their father, and the daughter lives in New York with her father. Brianna's adoptive mother, Bobby Jo, as their grandmother, has visitation rights with her granddaughter and said she sees her grandchildren as much as she can. I can't find my daughter, so the best thing for me to do is try my best to fill her role for them, for her babies, Bobby Jo said. They miss her so much. We all do. Bobby Jo describes her daughter as someone who loves the outdoors and hunting and horseback riding, but took every opportunity to dress up and get her nails done. She's very girly, totally opposite of me, she said with a laugh. Always dressed to the nines. Brianna's family members stay in touch with police as they continue to spread the word of her disappearance, hoping someone who might have seen her will come forward. Some days, it's really hard to hold on to hope, Bobby Jo said. There are times I've lost hope completely, but I haven't given up. I'll never give up looking for my daughter. Brianna is 5'10" tall, and at the time of her disappearance, weighed about 140 pounds. She has red hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing a cream-colored top, black capri pants and flip-flops. Brianna has a tattoo on her right shoulder that says family, as well as a tattoo on both wrists. She has a pierced nose and ears. Anyone with information about Brianna's case is asked to call the Flint Township Police Department at 810-600-3250. Her case number is 1,739,906,458.
Number 2.
Calandra Rachel Stallworth was a 28-year-old African-American woman from Florida. She had 2 daughters and was close to her family. Her grandmother, Joan Harvey, lived next door to her, and the two spoke every day. Calandra had diabetes and was insulin dependent. She had been dating 34-year-old Antwin Montrex Smith for 3 years and had his name tattooed on her left breast. On the morning of March 27, 2017, Calandra dropped off her daughters at her grandmother's home and went to her job as a housekeeper at the Hilton Sandyston Beach Resort on Miramar Beach. She called her grandmother that evening to tell her she was leaving work and would be there to pick up her daughters soon. Calandra never made it home that night. She was last seen leaving her workplace with Antwin. Her family soon reported her missing to authorities. Based on her cell phone's GPS, Calandra and Antwin drove to several different locations throughout the Florida Panhandle before the cell phone's battery died. A couple of days later, on March 29, Calandra walked into a police station in Crestview, Florida. She asked for her missing persons report to be canceled. Calandra explained that she had been in Alabama with her boyfriend and that she couldn't get a hold of her family because her phone had lost signal. Authorities canceled her report and her family was notified that she had been found. However, Calandra left the police station and was never heard from or seen again. On April 2, police spotted Calandra's missing car leaving Motel 6 on Harbor Boulevard in Destin, Florida. Antwin was behind the wheel and a woman was in the passenger's seat. But it wasn't Calandra. 18-year-old Talia Durham had been reported missing on March 29. It is unknown why she was with Antwin in Calandra's car, but her missing persons report was cancelled. Antwon was arrested for cocaine and marijuana possession, driving without a license, and probation violation. He was sentenced to 15 months in jail. Calandra's purse and phone were found in the car and authorities questioned him about his girlfriend's disappearance. Antwon told them he had dropped her off at another man's house, but didn't cooperate any further. Calandra's family believes it is likely that Antwon is involved in her disappearance. Her cousin Rebecca told NBC News that Antwon is definitely connected, he was controlling, and you can tell that he was an abusive type of person. She added that Antwon had a criminal record and that he was locked up right before all this happened. Joan also had her own suspicions. I told him, if you ever put your hands on her in front of me, and you are going to go head to head. In 2020, Antwon was charged with capital murder after killing 2 men in a drug deal gone wrong. Ryan Fraser and Joshua Carroll were utility linemen who had been installing cable lines in Alberta, Alabama, as part of Hurricane Sally restoration efforts. Antwon had met with the men in the late hours of October 8 for a drug deal. An altercation started in Fraser's car and ended with Antwon shooting them several times. Fraser and Carroll were found on the side of a road with both of their dogs standing guard over their bodies. After a police pursuit in which Antwon hit 2 vehicles and then crashed into a brick retaining wall, he was arrested in Fraser's car. Calandra's disappearance is being investigated as a missing persons case, not a crime. Antwon is a person of interest. Calandra has been missing for 4 years. Her family is still hoping she will be found. Joan spoke to NBC News about her close relationship with her granddaughter. I have grandkids all over, in Florida and Alabama, and I love them all, but she's the one that stayed next to me. I need her home.
Number 3.
The year of 2017 was a rough one for Cheyann Klus, 22, because she watched her mother, who she was very close to, slowly pass away from liver failure. The experience of losing one of the people she was closest with placed Cheyann in a deep depression. On top of that pain, she lost her beloved dog, which left her feeling empty without her 2 sources of happiness. Many people attempted to console her through her rough time, including a 38-year-old man named Brian Biddle. His way of helping Cheyann was distracting her mind by taking her to parties and surrounding her with drugs and alcohol. The actual nature of their relationship has never been distinguished. Some people believe they were dating, while others state that it seemed like they were just friends who enjoyed parties together. On December 1, 2017, Cheyann met with Brian to partake in a night of partying with just the 2 of them. It seemed as if all was well with Cheyann until a day and a half later. Just after sunrise, she began texting a well-trusted, longtime male friend named Chad Chanapite to pick her up. Apparently Chad was Cheyann's go-to person when she needed help. There were multiple texts from her begging to be picked up, in addition to some asking why he wasn't responding quickly. When he replied to her panicked messages, there was no reply. Chad decided the next best step would be to contact Brian and see what was going on. However, Brian offered little insight. He said that he had been sleeping for 18 hours straight and woke up to Cheyann gone from the home. She didn't have a car to drive away or money to take a taxi. It is believed that Brian didn't have a vehicle either because he paid for an Uber to bring Cheyann to him. 12 days after Cheyann vanished, a call went through to 911 from her cell phone. Before the operator or the caller could say a word, the person hung up. The same day that the call was placed, Cheyann's father officially reported her as missing. The timeline in which she was reported missing and when the call came in has not been released. However, police have stated that they believe the call was placed to throw off the investigation, meaning that she was most likely reported missing first. The location of the call was pinned to Mallard Lake, which was 18 miles from her home. Authorities and cadaver dogs combed through the area, but never searched the lakes and ponds. Brian Biddle has not been considered a person of interest whatsoever. Apparently he has been very cooperative by letting police search his home and phone records. However, he ended up facing unrelated charges of possession of a firearm and drugs. Cheyann has never been found. There has also never been any viable evidence to help solve what happened to her.
Number 4.
19-year-old Corinna Slusser was last seen in the early morning hours of September 20, 2017 at the Haven Motel in Queens, New York. Since then, she has not contacted her family. She has not contacted her friends. She has not posted on her previously active social media accounts. There have been few leads generated after her disappearance. The series of events preceding her disappearance, however, paint a much clearer picture. Corinna has come and spent time with me every summer. We've always had a close relationship, Julie Ann Becker-Kalfa told us. Julie is Corinna's maternal uncle's ex-wife, but was part of the family for 20 years and has stayed close with Corinna since the divorce. She was here in Massachusetts with me in the summer of 2016. In August, she went home. Corinna was a senior in high school and was living with her mom, Sabina Tuordo, in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. Julie told us the mom and daughter often fought, though, so Corinna asked if she could move and live with Julie. According to Julie, both she and Sabina agreed the move would happen during Corinna's winter break from school. The plans were halted, though, after Julie says she discovered some unnerving information about Corinna's last trip to see her. Before she came and moved in, my sons told me Corinna had gotten up to no good during the summer, without me knowing it, Julie told us. I was going to be away for 2 weeks in December, so I told Corinna and Sabina she wasn't allowed to move in until January when I got home. They were both really upset. Corinna ended up never moving in with Julie and instead started living with friends in a nearby Pennsylvania town that spring. According to Julie, just as Corinna was set to finish high school, she contacted her mom and said she had met somebody who could give her a place to stay in New York City. Sabina didn't want her to go, but she was over 18 years old at this point, Julie told us. The next day, Sabina got a phone call from the person Corinna had been living with during the spring, saying Sabina needed to come get Corinna's stuff. Corinna had left for New York with just her cell phone, ID, and the clothes on her back. She left her makeup, clothes and all other personal belongings behind. She also left high school behind. She was just one class shy of graduating. She did, however, stay in contact with her friends and family in Pennsylvania. From that point on, for the next month or so, she was in New York, but she was in contact with her mom and friends almost every day, Julie said. She seemed to be doing fine. Then in August, according to Julie, Corinna's mom Sabina got a letter in the mail from the New York Police Department. It was addressed to Corinna. It was a copy of a letter of protection notifying her that the attacker was incarcerated, Julie told us. She said, Sabina freaked out, called the NYPD and said, "What is going on?" The order of protection, provided to us by Julie, named 32-year-old Ahavani Piguero as the defendant. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office provided us with the complaint for Ahavani's corresponding arrest. It states the attack occurred on August 25 around 1 p.m. in Harlem, New York. He was charged with various assault and harassment charges, including assault in the third degree and criminal obstruction of breathing or blood circulation. The complaint states the alleged victim was crying, shaking, and speaking at a fast pace as she told the responding officer about the attack. The victim stated the defendant placed his hand around her neck and slammed her against the wall, making it difficult for her to breathe and causing substantial pain to her neck. A temporary order of protection was put in place. When Sabina spoke to Corinna about the incident, Julia said Corinna downplayed it. But the family was worried and started looking through Corinna's social media pages with the hope of gathering clues as to what she was doing in New York. Julie says the reality was immediately obvious to her. "I called Sabina and said, 'Oh, my God. She's prostituting,'" Julie told us. "One and one was making two. Everything was coming together. If you were to scroll through her Facebook, it was like advertisement." Julie contacted her niece and expressed her concern. "I said, 'I know somebody hurt you,'" Julie told us. "But that was it. That was the last communication I had with her." Corinna's maternal grandfather died in the beginning of September. Julie says Sabina called her daughter and told her she had to go to Florida for funeral. Corinna agreed to go, apparently. But then, the next day, came a phone call with more bad news. Corinna called her mom and said her license and social security card had been stolen, so she couldn't board a flight, Julie told us. She said she wanted to come home to Pennsylvania, though, and she'd be home the next day. Sabina left Pennsylvania for the funeral in Florida before Corinna was expected to arrive home that day. Julie says Sabina told her she kept trying to contact Corinna to make sure she'd gotten in safely. But a week went by, and Sabina still couldn't get a hold of Corinna from Florida. Julie says that upon Sabina's return, she reported Corinna as missing to the Monter Township Police Department. US was unable to reach the Monter Police Department to confirm this by Monday afternoon. Although friends and family report last hearing from Corinna on September 9, a press release from the NYPD says Corinna was last seen in the early morning hours of September 20, 2017 at the Haven Motel in Queens, New York. "We have found out through some of her friends and the investigations that this started off with someone offering her a place to stay in New York, the promise of a fun, fast life," Julie told us. Then it evolved to dinner dates, then a party atmosphere. It goes on, and once she wanted to leave and go back to Pennsylvania, that was it. Julie says Corinna's family believes the man who offered her a place to stay was Ahavani, the same man she filed an order of protection against in August after he allegedly attacked her. The family also believes Corinna is now being held against her will in a sex trafficking ring. Julie said NYPD detectives told her they believe Corinna has changed hands through pimps several times and don't know if she is still in the New York area. When reached by us, NYPD Lieutenant John Grimple would only say that they do not know Corinna's whereabouts, but the investigation is ongoing. "We have no idea where she is now," Julie told us. Unfortunately, Corinna is a textbook case of the trafficking epidemic. She is one of thousands in Nick. Despite allegedly being one of thousands, Corinna doesn't fit the stereotype, Julie says of her niece. "People may be envisioning runaways and drug addicts, and that is not Corinna," she told us. She was a cheerleader for a team called the Cornhuskers. She came from a rural Pennsylvania town. She was looking for a more exciting life. And I think that's why she went to New York City. I know Corinna had no idea what she was getting herself into." The NYPD describes Corinna as having blonde hair and blue eyes. She weighs approximately 140 pounds and is about 5'7" tall. She also has a large black flower-type tattoo in the middle of her chest. Anyone with information regarding Corinna Slusser is asked to call the NYPD's Crime Stoppers hotline at 1-800-577-TIPS, 8477, or for Spanish, 1-888-57-PISTA, 74782. The public can also submit their tips by logging onto the Crime Stoppers website at www.nipcrimstoppers.com. or by texting their tips to 274,637, crimes, then enter TIP 577. All calls are strictly confidential.
Number 5.
Angelica Castillo sits in front of a wall covered in photos of her missing daughter. It's been almost 2 years since Cynthia Martinez left a Cheyann bar and vanished into the night. A growing, rainbow-hued collage of artwork by Martinez's 4 children surrounds her photos in their Tigard home. "They are growing so fast," Angelica said. Martinez's youngest daughter was only 2 months old when she went missing. She's taken her first steps, celebrated 2 Christmases, and said her first words without her mother. "Because we don't have answers, it makes it harder for our grandkids," Angelica said. Angelica and her husband, Cesar Castillo, used to spend their weekends and evenings driving the roads of Marion County, searching for any sign of her daughter. "We would go searching for her in the beginning, but it got too hard for me," she said. "I'd get so excited to go, but when I had to come back empty-handed, it was so painful." Every time Angelica hears about an unidentified body being found, she emails the Cheyann detective in charge of her daughter's case. "Could this be my daughter's body they found?" she asks. But 2 years later, Martinez has not been found, nor has the man wanted in connection to her case. Her disappearance remains a mystery. So many people go missing in the United States, about 600,000 every year. The disappearances are referred to by experts as the nation's silent mass disaster. Due in part to sheer volume, missing persons and unidentified human remains cases are a tremendous challenge to state and local law enforcement agencies, said writer Nancy Ritter in the National Institute of Justice Journal. "The workload of these cases is staggering," she said. A month after Martinez's disappearance, Cheyann police officials said they'd spent more than 1,000 hours on the case with the help of the FBI, the Oregon Department of Justice, the Marion County District Attorney's Office, and other local law enforcement agencies in both Marion and adjoining counties. According to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System NamUs, there are 450 open missing person cases in Oregon. The Center for Hope, a non-profit created by 2 parents after their daughter disappeared in 1998, advises families on how to handle a missing loved one. In addition to contacting law enforcement immediately and pressing them to take the case seriously, family members are advised, keep the public aware of your story. Angelica and her family have spent almost 2 years doing just that. A year after her disappearance, Martinez's family met with community members at Chalmer Jones Park in Woodburn for a candlelight vigil. It brought back painful memories for Angelica. "It hurts, it's like a cut, and you're cutting it back open, and everything else just floods back out," Castillo said. "We are broken, and just waiting for Cynthia to come home, so we can be a whole family again." Angelica last saw her daughter on July 15, 2017. She and her husband took her out for a birthday breakfast. Martinez had turned 26 2 days earlier. They snapped a photo of her smiling, holding her 2-month-old daughter, Sophia. The family made plans to go hiking at Silver Falls the next day. Angelica babysat the kids that evening while Martinez went to a quinceanera in Woodburn. It was her first night out since Sophia was born. Martinez got dressed up in black lace-up booties, long fake eyelashes and a black flowered romper. She took a photo of herself with her long, dark hair falling over one shoulder past her shoulders and collarbone dotted with tattoos, a crown, the phrase "trust no one," the name Dominguez, and the words faith and trust on her arms. Angelica later remembered calling around to double-check how many tattoos her daughter had after she disappeared. She liked her tattoos. "I'd give her a hard time, and she wouldn't tell me until days later, after getting a new one," she said. Martinez would joke about them and tease her mother, always keeping her on her toes. Angelica checked in with Martinez at 10:30 p.m. Martinez said she was still at the quinceanera and was waiting for them to cut the cake. Then, there was nothing, no texts, no calls and no knocks on their doors. When Martinez didn't show up for their hike the next day, Angelica thought she might have just slept in. But as the day continued, she checked in with her other daughter, who hadn't heard from her either. Then she found out she never came home that night. Angelica said it wasn't like Martinez. She knew something was wrong. She called the local Woodburn police, who told her there wasn't much they could do because Martinez was an adult. Frustrated, Angelica began checking with her daughter's friends, wasting no time and trying to retrace her steps that night. She found out Martinez had met another friend at the Quinceanera and left with her to go to tequila nights in Keyser. Angelica and her husband, Cesar, drove to the Keyser bar. Nobody there remembered seeing anything out of the ordinary. They reviewed security footage and spotted Martinez and her friend arriving. Because her outfit didn't have any pockets, she handed her phone and ID to her friend. They hung out at the bar until her friend left without Martinez. Footage shows Martinez going out to the parking lot before coming back in. Angelica thinks she was looking for her friend. Around closing time, Martinez left with two men in a blue minivan. Angelica imagines her daughter, phoneless and miles from home, began talking with the men and found out they were heading to Woodburn. She thinks she went out to the parking lot and saw one of the men had a minivan with child car seats and thought it would be safe. After reviewing the footage, Angelica began sharing photos of the man on Facebook. One poster recognized him as then 30-year-old Jamie Alvarez Oliveira. Another sent her his address. Angelica went to the address in Woodburn. A blue minivan was parked in front. The woman who answered the door denied knowing Alvarez Oliveira, but after Angelica pressed her for information, she admitted he was her husband. She insisted she didn't know where he was and refused to say any more, closing the door on Angelica. Angelica said she couldn't leave without answers. She kept knocking on the door until someone called the police. "I told them, hey, you could have helped me out, but I had to do it on my own," she said. One of the officers was really nice, and he told us to go to Keyser Police because it happened in Keyser. Angelica went to the Keyser Police Department. By then it was nearly 2 a.m. on Monday. It had been almost 24 hours since Martinez went missing. She said Keyser Police immediately launched an investigation. "Unfortunately, it wasn't fast enough," Cesar said. "Later, we found out that Sunday is when he left, the day he fled. If right from the beginning, the other police department would have helped us, we would have had a much greater chance of catching him." News of Martinez's disappearance began spreading. Local TV stations, newspapers and national publications picked up the story of the mother of four. A Facebook group missing Cynthia Martinez-Perez sprung up, sharing photos of Martinez and Alvarez Oliveira. Angelica said the group was started by a stranger who reached out to her wanting to spread awareness about her daughter's case. The woman posts to the account sometimes multiple times a day about Martinez's case and other missing women and children. Jamie Alvarez Oliveira. "What the hell did you do with our Cynthia?" the woman recently wrote. "Time is up. Turn yourself in today." On August 9, 2017, 3 weeks after Martinez bade her last goodbyes to her children, Keyser Police publicly identified Alvarez Oliveira as a person of interest in her disappearance. They confirmed he was one of the men accompanying Martinez outside the bar. The second man, who was not identified by police, cooperated with investigators, telling them he was dropped off first in Keyser. Alvarez Oliveira was last employed as a farm laborer who harvested berries. He worked for a labor firm where he would call in every morning and be directed to different labor jobs on a daily basis. Police believe Alvarez Oliveira left Marion County on July 16, 2017. Although they were unsure whether he had left the country, rumors swirled on social media that he had fled to Mexico. Police declined to say whether they were searching for Alvarez Oliveira in Mexico. Keyser police asked to speak with anyone who might have seen his blue 2004 Honda Odyssey minivan or captured the vehicle on surveillance or trail cameras between Sunday, July 16, 2017, around 2:30 a.m. and Monday, July 17 around 11:45 a.m. in any rural, farmland or forested areas northeast of Keyser, Brooks, Lake Labish, Silverton, Mount Angel, Scotts Mills or Malala. Angelica said her daughter did not know Alvarez Oliveira. She checked with all of Martinez's friends and still came up with no connection between the two. Police have not provided a possible motive for Alvarez Oliveira or even labeled him as a suspect. An $8,000 reward from the FBI and an up to $2,500 reward from Crime Stoppers of Oregon remains available for information leading to the location of Martinez and the conviction of the person responsible for her disappearance. Keyser police say the investigation remains active and declined to publicly disclose any further details. The status of this investigation is active and ongoing and detectives are pursuing leads, Keyser police spokesman Lieutenant Bob Trump said. We are not releasing motives for any potential crimes, nor are we identifying any further persons other than those previously identified in order to protect the veracity of the investigation. The Marion County District Attorney's Office confirmed the ongoing investigation and said a grand jury has not convened to hear the case. By Oregon law, in the event that a grand jury does meet, the indicted charges will not be disclosed until a defendant is arrested. As the second anniversary of Martinez's disappearance nears, Angelica said she struggles with the idea of holding another public vigil. I'm tired, she said. Every time it comes up, it hurts more. I want to do things, just so we don't forget her, it still hurts a lot. It's like starting over. It's like opening a wound. She remembers her daughter, the oldest of 6, as a dedicated mother who loved music and spending time with her sisters. She was the one who made plans, who joked and cooked fantastic shrimp dishes. When I think about her, she would just laugh, and when she couldn't stop herself from laughing, she would start crying, she said. That's what I think about when I miss her the most. Martinez was still on leave from work at a clothing manufacturer after giving birth to Sophia, but she wanted to go back to school and become a police officer. She was, and I hate to use that word, she was young, Angelica said. I always told her, don't have too many kids, but she took after her mama. She wanted to have a lot of kids. Angelica said her granddaughter wants to celebrate her mother's birthday. Martinez would have turned 28 on Saturday. She wants to do a birthday party for her mom. She was telling me everything she wants done for her, the purple cake, the presents and a party, she said. Martinez's children, ranging in ages from 11 to 2, currently alternate weeks staying with Angelica and with the children's father. They are happy children, she said. They still smile and they still play. I think that is what keeps us going. The fact that they never found Martinez's body in the Marion County area gives Angelica a sliver of hope that her daughter is alive. Maybe, she thinks, her abductor took her somewhere and is holding her. She sometimes worries the police case will close or it'll go cold and tries to do everything she can to keep it and her hope alive. The pain never stops, it's just learning how to deal with it and go forward, she said. Angelica said she doesn't care so much about punishing Alvarez Oliveira as she does about finding her daughter. I just want to know where my daughter is, she said. Martinez is described as being 5 feet 1 inch and 135 pounds, with dark brown eyes and black hair. She has 2 prominent tattoos on her chest that read Dominguez and Trust No One. Anyone with information regarding Martinez's disappearance, or anyone who has had contact with Alvarez Oliveira on or after July 16, 2017 should contact the primary investigating detective, Keyser Police Detective Andy Phelps at 503-856-3497.
Number 6.
Family members of a missing Louisiana mom who disappeared 3 years ago are hoping for answers that will bring them closure. Cynthia Orsborn, 23, vanished on June 14, 2017. Family members said Orsborn, a mom of 2 young children, was last seen at a home in the Wynn Parish area of Calvin, Louisiana, that she shared with an older boyfriend, Jack Daniel J.D. Nobles, 41. Authorities and volunteer crews searched for Orsborn, concentrating on the Wynn and Natchitoches parishes area, without luck. Divers and cadaver dogs searched the Saline Bayou, and the task force was ultimately called in to assist with the search. 3 years later, law enforcement is no closer to finding Orsborn, but her family is determined not to let her case linger on as her father's case did. In January 2006, Orsborn's father, Michael, vanished without a trace, leaving behind a wife and 4 children. As of today, he has not been found, and no suspects have been arrested for his disappearance. Michael Orsborn was last seen at his home off of Highway 120 in Provencal. Investigators later found his car a few miles from his residence, in a ditch. Around 100 yards from the ditch, a mail carrier found his wallet. There was no money inside the wallet, according to family members. "We don't want the same thing to happen like it did in Michael's case," Cynthia Orsborn's aunt, Tanya Orsborn, said. Nobles has not been charged in connection with Osborne's disappearance, although law enforcement previously called him a person of interest. Webster Parish Assistant District Attorney Hugo Holland called Nobles a suspect in the case. "The last person seen with someone, before they go missing, that's our suspect," Holland told ABC3 in 2017. "It's not a matter of who did it," Holland continued. "Number 1, it's a matter of finding her. Again, I hope she's alive. Chances are, she's not. And once we find, let's just say we find remains, the second thing is going to be putting the case together. If I find remains, based on what I know now, I think I can put a case together." Without evidence, however, authorities have been unable to connect Nobles to Orsborn's disappearance. Family members, who called Nobles physically and mentally abusive, think that he knows more than he is letting on. He claims that Cindy was walking a little ways in front of him, saw a dog, and was trying to pet it when a dark car came along with loud music and Cindy spoke to them, and then got into the car with them and drove off. "We do not believe that story," Orsborn's aunt, Suzanne Pepper, told Crimean Line. "First of all, J.D. was extremely controlling of Cindy, and at any time he never let her out of his sight, not even to go to another room in the house." Court records indicate that Nobles has a lengthy criminal history, with charges of assault, false imprisonment, drug possession, and parole violation. In 2014, he was charged with assaulting and raping his girlfriend at the time, but the charges were ultimately dropped when they couldn't find the witness. In 2015, Nobles was arrested for domestic violence against Orsborn. A protective order was issued against Nobles, but by 2017 Orsborn was living with Nobles in a home in Wynn Parish. The home, located off of 400 block of Front Avenue, is the last place Orsborn was seen. Noble told the police she left with someone unknown and never came back. She was last seen there at the house with Nobles, Wynn Parish Sheriff Cranford Jordan said in 2017. According to family members, Orsborn had a drug addiction and got back together with Nobles because he supplied her drugs and constant attention. All indications are that they had a love-hate relationship, Natchitoches Sheriff's Detective Jonathan Biles told ABC3. "One minute, she would love him. The next minute, she would hate him. Same thing with Mr. Nobles." Meanwhile, Tanya Orsborn thinks authorities aren't doing enough to find Cindy because of her drug addiction, as well as her father's drug addiction. "Since my brother and niece had an addiction problem, they could care less. Like the old saying, action speaks louder than words. If you can't tell, I'm very upset about the way our family has been treated by law enforcement. Jonathan Biles from Natchitoches Sheriff is the only one that has lifted a finger to help. Shortly after Orsborn's disappearance, authorities arrested Nobles for violating the protective order by having contact with Orsborn. He was later allegedly caught with a cell phone behind bars and convicted of a multi-bill charge, which sentenced him to a 6-year prison sentence. Nobles has since been released from jail after a technical error made during his conviction and sentence. Efforts to reach out to Nobles for comment have so far been unsuccessful. Cynthia Orsborn is described as a white female who stands 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighs around 121 pounds. She has blonde hair, blue eyes, and a tattoo with the initials JD on her neck. Cynthia Orsborn is described as a white female who stands 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighs around 121 pounds. She has blonde hair, blue eyes, and a tattoo with the initials JD on her neck. Anyone with any information is urged to contact the Wynn Parish Sheriff's Office at 318-628-4611.
Number 7.
The Caroline County Sheriff's Office received information about a potential sighting of Delecia Waddy in the city of Richmond, according to a statement from the department. The sighting was reported in the Fendel Avenue area of Richmond on March 12, 2017, and investigators believe the information to be factual. Caroline police say the information came from someone who knew Waddy and was unaware she had been reported missing. According to police, the Caroline County Sheriff's Office is now working with members of the Richmond City Police Department in the investigation and search for Waddy. Caroline Sheriff A. Tony Lippa Jr. said in a statement this sighting provides hope that Delecia will be found safe and returned to her family. The last known traces of Delecia Waddy cover about 2 miles, as the crow flies, from the King's Dominion Camp Wilderness Campground in Doswell to the area of a rural intersection in Caroline County. And now police and family of the 24-year-old Glen Allen woman are asking for help finding her and explaining the strange circumstances surrounding Waddy's disappearance. Waddy was reportedly last seen on late Thursday afternoon. She also had been seen at 11:30 a.m. that morning at the campground at 10,061 Kings Dominion Boulevard in Doswell. She was seen on Thursday walking along State Route 30 east toward Caroline County from the campground. Her silver Ford Explorer was found near the Kings Dominion property. Her purse, phone, wallet, license and other personal items were found in the nearby Meadow Event Park, according to the Caroline County Sheriff's Office. There are a strange set of facts surrounding Waddy's disappearance, Caroline Sheriff Tony Lippa said Monday, after holding a news conference in Bowling Green with the missing woman's family. After Waddy's family reported her missing last week, a search began, using a helicopter, ATVs, boats and search dogs. Searchers focused on the area around Meadow Event Park. She was not found. On Friday afternoon, a person approached police with a video taken on Thursday afternoon of a woman believed to be Waddy walking in a field off of Meadow Farms Road, according to the Caroline Sheriff's Office. Another search was launched in which dogs picked up Waddy's last scent in the area around the intersection of Meadow Farms Road and Sadie Lane. Police conducted a door-to-door search, with no luck. Caroline investigators said Waddy had tried to negotiate a price for a spot at the campground on Thursday, but left with no agreement. Although her Explorer had gas and was working, Waddy left on foot. She reportedly had been acting spacey at the campground, according to police. Caroline Sheriff's Major Scott Moser said they don't know what happened to Waddy, but that they are keeping an open mind in order to solve the mystery. Waddy, who stands 5 feet 1 inch tall and weighs 145 pounds, was last seen wearing a black halter top and black pants with a white stripe. She had no shoes on. Anyone with information about Waddy's whereabouts can call the Carolyn Sheriff's Office at 800-4633 to 5400. Anonymous tips can be left at 800-4633 to 1133. Tips can also be sent to the Hanover County Sheriff's Office at 800-4365 to 6140 or the Metro Richmond Crime Stoppers at 800-4780 to 1000. Citizens can also text Crime Stoppers at 2746.